Oh God, may the words of my mouth and the meditations of all of our hearts be pleasing and acceptable to you this day, for you are truly our rock and our Redeemer. Amen. So we are in the midst of this series. You've been seeing these hearts every week, seeking and sharing Christ in a broken world. And if you look carefully at the heart each week, you might be noticing some things about it. Certainly each week that we gather, life changes around us, doesn't it? Something different happens each day. As much as we want things to remain the same, they don't, ever. Even if we think in our head that our life is just the same every day, it never is. The cells in your body change, and everything about your life and creation changes. Moment to moment, day to day, week to week, and certainly year to year. It's like if we could take a microscope and look at our own lives throughout the day, we could probably see enough change as we are seeing. Even this afternoon, our youngest granddaughter today will celebrate her 8th birthday. We have lived here since just before she was born. So when I think about change, I think about that tiny infant with her mom and dad when they came home from the hospital, and how we've watched her grow. And you've all seen this in children. The reality is that it happens in our own lives too. It's just that at some point, we kind of forget that part. We kind of think we're all growing up and we're not going to grow anymore. And yet, as we pay attention to this broken world that we're living in, and this notion of seeking and sharing Christ because the world needs Christ so badly, we look toward those places of change and healing. So it's an odd mix of scripture this morning. We don't often pay attention to the first one that John read, the story of Jesus when he's about 12 and he stays in the temple, as his parents brought him up in their faith tradition, made sure that he went to temple for holidays and festivals, and that he was learning, he was immersed in scripture. He was teaching, they were teaching him, and then he was teaching everyone. This process of learning who God is. And in the second scripture from 1 Timothy, it tells us very, very clearly that we are to be brought up, we are to train ourselves and practice in the ways of God, in this holy living, if you will. And so for me, as I look at the brokenness in the world, I kind of want to gather us in and remember that this is part of what we do as followers of Jesus. We invite the rest of the world, sometimes including our own children, into learning the stories of Jesus and learning the purpose of why we gather in places such as this throughout the world. To make a difference, to have this hope and healing be at least in our mind's eye and sometimes in our very fingertips, a reality because of how we live. Today is a Communion Sunday, as is our practice in this place and in many Christian traditions, the first Sunday of the month. As we think about what communion is, certainly it is communing together around a table. It is a remembering of Jesus and his death and resurrection, and the reminder that he gave his own followers, and that comes to us as well, to remember. And how can we remember if we've never learned? So what is it we're remembering as a people of faith here? We are invited to remember Jesus' life and all that he did for the people around him. This is how, in teaching that to others, how we train up and invite a new world in the midst of our very reality. In the midst of the messiness and the brokenness that we hear about day by day, week by week, we are invited into this healing and this hope through nurturing and feeding each other, not only with Christ at the table, but with each other, and how we serve and share each other. How do you offer the healing and hope of God to those around you? Be trained in holy living so that we know how to do it, right? Maybe it came naturally to you like snapping fingers. For me, it was a long process to kind of learn how to do that and invite others alongside of me to share in what it means to actively pursue healing and hope in the world. Our world today, as I say almost every week, needs us so badly. But we need to make sure that we're in the right place, the right frame of mind as well. 1 Timothy again, train yourself for a holy life. Our hope is set on the living God. Our hope is set on the living God. And this communion with this living God is not just a communion person to person, but if we pay attention to the portions of Psalm 104, which Pastor Samara read for you, it is also recognizing our communion with the world itself, with the land and the plants and the creatures, that we're just not isolated by ourselves, but there's a whole world for us to commune with. I had an experience earlier this week, I can't even think of what day it was, with someone who was really struggling. And I think even Pastor Samara, you put something on Facebook about me always sending everybody outside.
Yes.
And I do this regularly. Get outside. If you're struggling with your life, go sit in creation, go to Red Rocks, go walk around the patio, whatever it might be. And this person was really struggling, and all of a sudden this thought came to my mind of inviting him to go someplace here where a bird sanctuary is, out in Henderson on the east side, and just walk, that's all. Just walk. Be connected, be nurtured and fed by the things around you. And that's something that, even though we live in the desert, is available to us every single day. To be nurtured and fed by creation, to be nurtured and fed by each other, and certainly how we interact and treat each other and share our lives together as we fellowship together, and certainly as we come to the table and share in this meal. That our ability then to truly set our hope on a living God, on our living God, our ability then to share Christ, to offer hope and healing in the world, because we have been nurtured and fed. And that way we can offer that nurture and food for others. So this is what we do. in part as a church, right? We offer this to others. We have Sunday school for little ones all the way up to, I mentioned that Mike is starting a new class at 11:15. Pastor Samara will be having a class during Lent. All of these ways to be trained, to practice, to learn the ways of what does it mean to offer hope and healing in this broken world. What does it mean for you, for each one? Not just a select few. Not just the people with blue eyes. Not just the people with curly hair. No, everyone is part of how God invites us to offer healing to the world. And so I invite you this day, as we come to this table, to receive what you need, to be nurtured and fed, so that you might continue the training of living a life with this living God. And it is my hope and prayer that it might rekindle a fire in you, that we might offer the fire to the world around us. Thanks be to God for this day, for each one of you, and that you have found your way here. And may your life embrace the healing and the hope that we have.